Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm going to talk you through my first draft now that FPL has launched. Before we do that, it's worth noting there's an exciting offer going on at Fantasy Football Scout. There's 47% off for membership, and also it's worth noting we've had a massive redesign this season as well. So all the new widgets and gadgets and new design as well to make it easier to do these things. They're all Opta powered, XG data, all those kinds of lovely tools and gadgets to help you climb up your mini leagues, maybe even win them. That's the hope anyway. Also, just before we go on, do remember to press that like button. It does help us out. And do remember to subscribe. Keep up to date with our latest videos and podcasts. Okay, right. I'm going to get stuck in straight away. Here's the first draft, okay? So this is what I made pretty much just after the game had launched. And I'll chat a little bit about some of the changes I'll probably make. But whilst some of the players will be different, I like this sort of structure. I'm going for a 4-4-2 at the moment, and I like this sort of structure because I don't think forwards are going to be worth as much money as they have been in recent years. In addition, we have to factor in the fact that defensive midfielders are now worth something, and defenders are now worth a bit more. They've been given a bit of a bump, really, not just in the bonus point system. There's been a tweak there around tackles, so they can get some more points for tackles, which is good. But they also get an extra 2 points if they hit certain metrics as well. Do have a look at the FPL site about those changes there. But it essentially means that particularly centre-backs who make lots of clearances are going to do really well this season. As a result, you will have a look through the player list and you'll go, how much for that Everton defender? Well, they could be worth a lot of money in this as well. So I'd like to include an Everton defender there. So I'll read this out for the benefit of the podcast listeners. So I've gone for 4-4-2 with Pickford in goal. I've got back four of Cucurella, Van de Ven at Spurs, Virgil van Dijk, Wan-Bissaka. And I've got my four in midfield. I've got Salah, who's going to be my captain, I believe. Palmer, Wirtz, who is not kindly priced at 8.5. It's a good price to dip your toe in because despite what Liverpool fans will say, he has yet to play a single minute of Premier League. So he is still an unknown. We just assume he's going to be good. And I think 8.5 is quite a reasonable price to test that out. Up front, I've got Bowen. He's been moved from a midfielder to a forward, but he is playing Sunderland, and he is Jared Bowen. I've got Slanky as well from Spurs. He's at home to Burnley as well. I'd like Spurs for this initial fixture. On my bench, I've gone for a cheap non-playing goalkeeper, Van der Marsen. I've got Anderson as my defensive midfielder who could get me some points. More about him later, but you can pick a number of players, and I'll show you some of the players that you could pick in that role. That sort of good first sub, an extra attacker that you can field who might get you at least 4 points a week. I've gone for Ballard at Sunderland. Ignore him in a way. He's just a 4.5 player. His fixtures aren't too bad. In fact, Sunderland's fixtures are pretty good early on. I don't know how they're going to be. He might get lots of defensive extra points, but he might lose them because he might lose his clean sheets as well. So I've just put him there. But there's already another player I've got my eye on in that role. And I've gone for Scarlett. He could be anywhere in any 4.5 forward in the game. Because I'm just looking at the way the pricing, they've been priced very well this year. We've had 2 or 3 seasons really where the pricing's been pretty easy for us. They've just done sort of blanket things like all these defenders are 4.5, all these midfielders are 5 million, 6 million. But this time around, I think we've got some tough decisions to make. As you can see with this team here, it's far from perfect, but it's got some good players, but you're going to have a bit of dross as well in there. And I've gone for Scarlett as well, who's a bit of a dross. He won't play. So he could be anyone, those 4.5 players. I do a video with the FPL General looking at his team each week. I did that all last season. We're doing it again this season. He had a Scarlett there. It wasn't Scarlett. I can't remember who it was. The Wolves non-playing striker there. And he did exceptionally well. And it didn't harm him at all. So I don't really mind that as well. I also think there's really value in the cheap midfielders. So previously people might have gone 3-4-3 and you have a sort of a cheap non-playing midfielder there. But now that cheap non-playing midfielder is playing and can get those defensive points. So I think they're worth a bit more rather than the cheap striker. The cheap striker is just bung him on the bench really. There. And obviously in pre-season, I think we're going to get some emerging cheap gems as well. You might even get a 4.5 striker who actually starts. Who knows? Okay, so there's some obvious caveats apply here. Game's just launched. The first match is next month. The players will all change. So to be honest, most of these are just placeholders. I've got them there because they're of the prices, but also the types of players they are. So Anderson, for example, there, it's just because I think a defensive midfielder is a really good option there. Salah and Palmer are there because they're good captaincy candidates as well. I've also tried to incorporate the new rules. Obviously, I've spoken about defensive midfielders, actions for defenders as well. So I've got a mixture here. I've got your sort of attacking, your fullbacks, your Cucurella's, Wan-Bissaka as well. But I've also gone for Virgil van Dijk, who can make a lot of clearances, get clean sheets as well. The bread and butter of this thing is still clean sheets for defenders. So we mustn't forget that. Also, certain players here. So I've got Jorginho here in my midfield. So yeah, my midfield is 4-man midfield. Just reiterate that again for the podcast listeners. You might not call that. I've got Salah, Palmer, Wirtz, and Jorginho. And I like. I also do a video each week with Fantasy Football Scouts deputy editor Tom Freeman. He is a subscriber to the strategy of having a good fourth midfielder who's a bit of a gamble. And I think Jorginho Ruta, that is, at Brighton, could be the one there. I've seen Ndai there for Everton as well. Same principle. Basically, it's someone that you just don't know. You don't know whether they're going to do well. You can move them around as well, but they could do well, and they're probably going to be very low owned as well. And Ndai might be quite well owned because Everton have a good opening fixture. And there's a lot of talk. I mean, Everton have seen a bit of a price jump, actually, across the board because they're quite defensively minded, but I think Ruta could be there. But I'll explain some other candidates I've got for that role a bit later as well. It also comes from the perspective of who I am as a manager. So if you're new to watching me on these videos or new to watching Fantasy Football Scouts content, see, my career history. So I'm a cautious manager. You're not going to see me having a team full of Jorginho Rutas in my team. I'll have one or two. I've had 8 top 10k finishes and regularly finish in the top 1%, but I've never won it. So that's the sort of manager I am. Quite cautious, quite steady, try and do the sensible things. That's the aim anyway. So that's the perspective I come across. So if you incorporate some of those tactics in your own strategies as well, then you might find something that really chimes with you there as well. Other changes to make note of for this, the bonus has been tidied up, the bonus point system. So various things around assists and things, but that hasn't really influenced my moves. The odd player might get an assist where they previously hadn't. That's not going to be that drastic as well. The other thing about this draft, I'm undecided about a bench boost in game week 1. So I'm just going to take a sip of something because on my own today, I haven't got anyone to bounce off. So this is a no chip side. Now that may change, and obviously if I was going to have a bench boost here, that would dramatically change this. So I think Anderson would stay, or rather that role, that defensive midfielder would stay. I would have to bump up the other goalkeeper. Ballard would change to a better defender. I've got someone else in mind, and I couldn't go into this with Scarlett as well. So I would have to find probably a couple of, well, at least 1.5 or 2 million to bump Scarlett up to a decent striker, possibly one of the Everton ones. Danny Welbeck is also on my mind as well. So I would need to find that money. So that would mean I would have to cut corners. Pickford would have to go. Cucurella could come down to Tarkowski. So there's savings there already. I may have to downgrade Virgil van Dijk. You can see you're starting to cut corners, and that's why ultimately I'm not that keen on a game week 1 bench boost. But in essence, that's what a bench boost is. You always got to cut corners. That's what it's all about. is cutting those corners, and he's going to have to do it at some point. I just feel those sort of cheaper players will emerge, I think, a bit later in the season. Also, we've got some mini wildcards we can do. We're all getting 5 transfers for game week 16 because around AFCON, mini wildcard time, that could be a time to either move in or out of a bench boost. Similarly, before you could save some transfers, and then some around game week 10, you can wildcard, sort of do this sort of mini wildcard if you can save up transfers. You can even wildcard itself, so you can wildcard in and out. So I think with those mini wildcards and the wildcard, I think there's going to be other times to either run away from or run into a bench boost. And by then we'll know a bit more about some of the cheaper players. We'll know more about the promoted side as well. So, Leeds have gone up. Burnley have gone up as well. Sunderland have gone up. I mean, especially with Leeds and Burnley, this perhaps will be a change from recent years. We're used to target the promoted sides, target Ipswich, for example. But this time around, they could be good. They could be good sides. And, it could be Wolves, could be Bournemouth, who knows? Brentford even. They could be in a relegation scrap, and we could be looking at Leeds and going, well, what a great defensive side, what a great attacking side. We don't know. By game week 10, we might know. And so that's why I'm a little bit wary there. So, and obviously, why am I talking about bench boost there? For those that don't know, we've got double chips. Bench boost, wildcard, triple captaincy. We get 2 sets of them. 1 set to use first half of the year, first half of the season. Second for the second half of the season there. So it's changing the dynamics there. And of course, these extra transfers as well is going to change it even further. A bit more information about some of my decisions here. So let's have a look at the fixtures. Okay, so fixtures is key. That's the first thing I look at there. Sunderland are top for the first 4 fixtures. They've got West Ham at home, Burnley, Brentford and Crystal Palace. It's an okay set of fixtures there for Sunderland. You've got to factor in their promoted side as well. So that's why Everton are second, and we know what they're about in the Premier League. We know what David Moyes is about. Very defensively minded, focusing on, a good striker as well, which they haven't really had, or rather consistent striker in recent years. Beto could be the one, could be Barry, their new striker there. So they got Leeds away, then Brighton at home, good fixture, first home game for them, for a new stadium. Wolves away, Aston Villa at home. So they've got reasonable fixtures there. Man City, who are absent in my team, that's another issue that I want to address there. They've got Wolves, Tottenham, Brighton and Manchester United. Chelsea, good set of fixtures. This is why I like Parma, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Fulham and Brentford. And Brentford themselves, mixed bag really. They've got Nottingham Forest and Sunderland away. Pretty okay. Aston Villa and Chelsea at home. Okay. West Ham, they've got a good opening fixture, and they do have Tottenham as well. So they've got Sunderland away. They have Tottenham in game week 4 as well. Could be good for Bowen. Fulham, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Burnley, Arsenal, Brighton. They've sort of middling fixtures. Manchester United, Wolves, Bournemouth, not very good fixtures at all. Liverpool as well. They do have Bournemouth at home. They do have Burnley away in the first 4, but they've also got Newcastle and Arsenal as well. Aston Villa, I think, are interesting. Newcastle at home. It's not a bad fixture for likes of Watkins. Brentford away, once again, good for their attackers. Crystal Palace at home, could be good for their attackers, and Everton away. So pretty reasonable fixtures for Watkins and co. So Aston Villa are certainly on my mind. I want to have a look at defenders as well. So just to remind you, I've got Cucurella, Van der Ven, Virgil van Dijk and Wan-Bissaka. So the table I've got up on the screen, just for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, these are looking at new defensive points. So defenders can get 2 points if they hit, I think it's 10 of a clearance, a block, an interception, or tackle. So you add them all up, and it's not tackles one, it's just tackles. They just got to tackle. So great for Paul Scholes fans. Just don't have to win those tackles. You just got to just lunge. So this list of players here are really good in a lot of those metrics there. Clearances is particularly key because that's the one where they really rack up there. So you can see, so for example, Murillo's top. in clearances, blocks, interceptions. He's made 55 tackles last season, pretty good. He made 36 interceptions, 45 blocks, 249 clearances. Clearances is the things you're going to rack up. So if you're averaging something like 6-7 clearances a game, you've only got to make 2 or 3 more things, and then you've already got those 2 bonus. So these guys here are absolute gold. Murillo at Nottingham Forest is great for this. Second name's Collins at Brentford, another player I'm very interested in. Tarkowski at Everton, another player I'm very interested in. If I didn't have him, it would be Pickford, and Pickford's in my side at the moment, but as we see, we could change him around a bit. Kilman at West Ham. So I've got Wan-Bissaka. Could be Kilman. Could be the one there. I've got Wan-Bissaka in because of the assists, because there are changes, but it's still goals, assists, clean sheets. That's what it's all about. And so I think Wan-Bissaka with those assists potential and potential for clean sheet as well as Kilman could be good. Another surprise here, Lacroix at Crystal Palace. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name at all because it's not a player I've ever considered really. Because you look at their fullbacks at Crystal Palace, don't look at their centre backs, but he could do really well here in clearances, blocks, interceptions, and tackles, all very strong. Van Dijk's here, so usually for this extra points, the defenders in the good sides, you would think wouldn't rack up so many of these because as a team, they're going to defend better. They don't perhaps need to make as many of these sort of tackles or interceptions because they've already been cut down in midfield by the likes of McAllister, for example. But Van Dijk here does make a lot of clearances as well. So he makes 190, which is very strong over the season. Tackles reasonable, but not as strong as, say, Murillo, 55, for example, or Milenkovic, who's the next name on here with 55, 38 for Van Dijk there, but still pretty good. But clearances are pretty strong. I think he could get some defensive points there. And if you add that on to the higher clean sheet potential for a defender from a good side, I think that's really strong. Milenkovic is next, and Anderson at Fulham as well. All reasonable. I want at least 2 of these in my side, I think. So that's what I'm aiming at, really. Just a quick reminder what it's all about. I said it's all about goals and assists and clean sheets. Well, his best XGI, expected goal involvement last season. This is a reminder of these are the lads you want for captaincy. Salah is absolutely top. Minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, every 120 minutes. Wissa is bottom of this list. I say bottom of the list of excellent players, every 143 minutes. So these are the players you want. Salah is top here. Exceptional expected goal involvement. Saka is next. Then Haaland. Then Isak. Then Palmer, who by his standards had a poor season, but he's still got 25 returns, so still pretty strong. And then Wissa as well, Brentford, very strong here. So these are the sorts of players that I definitely want to include as well. So you need that mixture of all the defensive players and attacking players. I also just want to show you another table I've done on defensive midfielders. So at the moment, I've got Anderson at Nottingham Forest here. So once again, they also get, for every 12 of these sort of defensive actions, they get an extra 2 points. Recoveries and tackles is what they're going to be doing. They're not going to be making a lot of clearances, but they're going to be making a hell of a lot of recoveries and tackles. Caicedo is the top here. Then you've got Bruno Fernandes. Now, he's going to cost more, and he's actually had a bump as well. So FPL Towers have noted that there's high potential for these kinds of points to really add up over the season. Anderson is next on this list with his recoveries, 270 made last season. So he's really strong there. But you can go cheap as well. You've got Gomez at Wolves, 200 recoveries, so he's going to start racking up those points. Baleba at Brighton, 197. He's going to be racking them up as well. And he's had marginally less starts than some of the others at 31. And then Christie at Bournemouth. He had only 27 starts, bit of injury there, but he's 182 recoveries. So I think I worked out per 90. I think he's actually the best. So Christie, I really like as well. And if I need to save that 0.5, which I will, so Christie could be the one I go for there. Baleba at Brighton. I think these are really strong here. So just factoring all of that, I'll just put my first draft up again. And just remind you, it's got Pickford, Cucurella, Van der Ven, Virgil, Van Dijk, Wan-Bissaka, Jorginho Ruta, Salah, Palmer, Wirtz, Bowen and Solanke, with Anderson, Ballard, Scarlett and Valdemarson on the bench. But what I've done here, just before I go, I have got a sort of an amended first draft, really. So I'll just put this up cheekily at the end, really. So this is showing some changes here. And there's certain things. This is going to change every day, every week. This is going to be one of millions of drafts. Okay, so the first draft's the one you should be looking at. This is the one that's sort of changed in the time it's taken me to send over the first draft to get the graphic for it. So I've gone for Areola and Kelleher in goal. So no Pickford there because I've got Tarkowski. So I've used him. I think Tarkowski or Pickford, one of them will be in my side. Virgil van Dijk stays, Wan-Bissaka stays. De Kuyper. Now, Estupiñán, we heard last night, is pretty much going to AC Milan. So that leaves the way. He's going to have very, very little competition. De Kuyper, already we're seeing in pre-season, he's the fullback that is going a bit gung-ho. He's the one that's more advanced. He's got a great track record beforehand of attacking returns as well. So I've retained the 4-4-2 with this one. So instead of Ruta, I've gone for Ndai, but it could be Ruta again. So it's that same principle, that fourth midfielder, bit of a gamble. Salah, he stays, still captain. Palmer stays. Wirtz, he's still there, 8.5, have to. Solanke, he remains as well. And I found myself with a bit more money. So I just thought, well, you know what? I'll go for Ollie Watkins. I quite like Ollie Watkins for a lot of these fixtures here. Also, it gives me, means I'm a sort of a million or so away from Isak, who I might want. Also means, say, Arsenal, they've been linked with a new striker. Maybe I want to get that player. Maybe I want to get an Arsenal striker in. I can get to that. So I don't want to go too cheap. So Scarlett still remains there. He is cheap. But I want 2 slots there where I can be a bit more flexible. Yeah, flexibility, I think, is the key. There. So I've also, so Solanke and Watkins. And on my bench, I've gone for Christie. I mentioned about him. I've saved that 0.5. I like to get Anderson, but Christie I think is really good as well. Scarlett remains. And I've got Steve at Burnley, who's 4 million, should start. The Steve, the electric Steve, I'll call him. I think he could be good bench fodder that hopefully I will never need. But this is where, so I've started to fine tune it a bit. Where can I save a bit of money there? And I think Christie is good to go because if you look at the fixtures as well with Bournemouth, they've got Liverpool away, but then they've got Wolves at home, Tottenham away, Brighton at home. So I think there's a really good scope there for attacking returns there. Looking at that, there's my first draft, and this is a sort of amended version. I could put, to be honest, every hour I could put a different version up as well. So anyway, that's tying up really for the video version of this as well. But if you'd like to hear my thoughts on my team Brighton a bit more, about some of the players to target there, head over to our podcast channel because there'll be more here. I'll also look to answer some of the questions you've been kind enough to send me as well. I thought we'd sort of include some of those as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe and keep up to date with all our content.